to the finals of Preliminary Pro Tour Qualifier at Gryphon Games and Comics. The format for this event was modern. The two players we have playing in the finals. On the left, we have Blake Donnan playing an Aggro Life from the Loam deck. And on the right, we have Justin Miyashiro playing a mono blue Delver of Secrets deck. One of the interesting things is neither of these decks are Tier 1 decks in the format, but in spite of the fact that there were plenty of decks that are generally considered in the top tier of the format, both these players managed to battle through those decks to meet each other in the finals. It just goes to show that if you want to do something kind of different from the established path in a format like Modern, it's definitely something you can do and have good success with. It's more important that you have a deck that you know how it plays and you enjoy playing and you're familiar with than playing a deck that other people might have good success with. Going into the matchup, both of the players agreed that the matchup fairly heavily favors Donnan. The ability to turn lands into damage from either of his enchantments gets overwhelming for Miyashiro going long. 2 damage is enough to kill virtually all of the creature threats in Miyashiro's deck, which are his primary way of winning. Miyashiro's primary hope of winning is to get an early damage, ideally with an early Delver of Secrets, before Donnan's long game can overwhelm him. Players are looking at their opening hands here, deciding how they feel about them. Donnan's keeping his opening 7, as is Miyashiro. Miyashiro plays a fetch land, gets a basic island, which is all the fetch lands are doing in his deck, and plays a first turn Delver of Secrets, going to 19. Donnan plays a fetch land. He has a lot more choices. It's a 3-color deck. He's generally going to get a shock land here and go down to 17 if he has a 1-mana spell to play, or just have it tapped. But if he was going to have it tapped, he would have waited till Miyashiro's turn. So he does go down to 17. And then he's casting a Faithless Looting, which lets him draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. So he's drawn his 2 cards, and then he has a tough choice here about which cards he wants to discard. He does have 2 enchantments in his hand that are redundant. They both let him turn lands into 2 damage, so he only needs to keep one of them, as the second copy doesn't do anything while it's in play. So he's decided that he's going to get rid of the cheaper one that requires mana activate rather than the more expensive one to cast. Then he's also looking at getting rid of Terminate. He has several removal spells in hand. And he's debating if that's really what he wants to get rid of. And then he's deciding to get rid of the Seismic Assault and a Terminate. He's getting rid of Terminate as it does answer Justin's threats, but it can be countered, unlike the Abrupt Decay, which he chose to keep. Justin's swinging for 1, putting Blake down to 16. Makes his own land drop. And then Justin's playing a Jeskai Sage, which is a creature that, while standard legal, sees very little standard play, but in Modern, gets to be a fair bit better. It has Prowess, which is a far more powerful mechanic in Modern, getting +1/+1 whenever you play a non-creature spell. And then also, when it dies, controller gets to draw a card. So Justin can make that a large threat, and then if its opponent kills it, it's draw a card. Donnan is fetching for a shock land again, putting himself down to 13. He's going to try and land the enchantment here and then use it to kill a threat. Miyashiro does have the Disrupting Shoal to counter it, even though he was tapped out. He's going to upkeep. He flips the Delver of Secrets into an Insectile Aberration, revealing a Cryptic command. Plays a Serum Visions, draws a card, puts them both on top, gets to battle for 5 because of the Prowess trigger, putting Donnan down to 8. The turn now does play the Abrupt Decay to kill the Insectile Aberration, and now he gets to play Shock Land tapped because he really doesn't want to take 2 damage. Miyashiro is totally fine taking 2 damage, and pays 2 life to a Cataxian Probe, so he gets to see Blake's hand and draw a card, as well as getting the Prowess trigger. Just taking some notes as to what's in Blake's hand there. Make his land drop. Battle for 2 with the Jeskai Sage, it looks like, putting Donnan down to 6. I'm going to pass the turn with some counter mana open to try and respond to whatever Blake might do. Blake's looking at his options here. Plays Wooded Foothills, cracks it, goes down to 5. And with as low as his life total is, yeah, he's just going to get a basic land, because that can come into play untapped without doing him 2 damage, and he already has all the colored mana he needs. Goes for the Scavenging Ooze to try and get a blocker. Miyashiro has the Remand, which turns it back to his hand. Then rather than replaying the Scavenging Ooze, he does go for Abrupt Decay on the Jeskai Sage, so he doesn't get blown out by a bounce spell from Miyashiro, such as the Cryptic Command that's known to be in his hand. Miyashiro is passing with missing his land drop, but he does have a Vendilion Click for the draw step, so he gets to look at Blake's hand, and he gets to take the Seismic Assault that's in the other enchantment, because that would have answered the Vendilion Click. Donnan does have Tarmogoyf, as well as his Scavenging Ooze and a life from the Loam. So he gets to play out the Tarmogoyf and the Scavenging Ooze. So he's presenting a fair bit of damage, but not the ability to block the Vendilion Click, and he's only at 5. Another probe from Miyashiro put him down to 15. Sees the life from the Loam that is the only card left in hand. Sarah Visions draws his 4th land. That makes his land drop. Battles for 3, putting Donnan down to 2, and keeping up some options. Donnan draws for the turn. Looks at his options, isn't thrilled about any of them. Battles with both creatures. Activate Scavenging Ooze, exiling both of Miyashiro's 2 dead creatures. Gains 2 life, goes to 4, which does mean he can survive 1 hit from the Vendilion Click. Miyashiro takes 4 from the Scavenging Ooze, and then the Tarmogoyf did shrink down to a 4/5 because it's not a creature. So it's a total of 8 damage, putting Miyashiro down to 7. Players are just double checking the count that it is 4/5 Tarmogoyf. Card requires players to do math on a regular basis and a lot of counting. Plays his land tapped. Miyashiro plays Snapcaster Mage just as additional power, which is all he needs, as Donnan's at 4. And then the players are on to game 2. So players are evaluating their sideboard options. Donnan's doing a more traditional sideboarding of figuring out which cards he wants to bring in, and then looking at which cards to cut. The main thing he wants to bring in is Chalice of the Void, which is XX for an artifact, enters the battlefield with X charge counters. Whenever a player plays a spell with converted mana cost X, counters it. So much of Miyashiro's deck is 1 and 2 mana spells that an early Chalice for 1 or a late Chalice for 2 can turn off most of the things Miyashiro can do. Miyashiro's trying to be clever here and reduce the amount of information he's giving to Donnan by taking all of his sideboard, shuffling it, and then figuring out which 15 cards to cut. It does have the advantage of reducing the information of your opponent. Some people find it disorienting for themselves, so that's clearly not worth the small information and information gain for the logistical hassle of doing it and being less intuitive for figuring out which cards you do and don't want. So Donnan gets to be on the play in this game. His primary goal here is going to be to try and land an early Chalice or an early enchantment. Again, if he just needs to buy time in order to take control of the game. His long game is much better than Miyashiro's. Miyashiro is once again hoping to try and get in an early Delver of Secrets and try and get that flipped as soon as possible. Miyashiro is just debating his last couple of cuts here, as he's just not quite sure which land. It looks like he does decide to cut a Disrupting Shoal, even though that card did do a lot of work in the game that he won already. The card disadvantage can be rough to deal with, and part of what makes that card good is it can be unexpected. So if you side some of it out, then your opponent still has to play around it even when you don't have it. So you can get a lot of value out of your opponent not knowing whether or not you have it, even if it may not be left in your 60 cards. So the players are just finishing shuffling here. If Donnan can pull this out, then they go to a decisive third game. Miyashiro wins, then that'll be the end of the match. Miyashiro is really hoping to get in that early damage here. Again, his long game just can't keep up with the card advantage from the enchantments of the Loam deck. Players are drawing their opening hand. Donnan has a hand full of land. His list is running a lot more land than most constructed decks would tend to run, and one of the costs of doing so is sometimes you have a grip full of land and have to mulligan that hand. Miyashiro is keeping his hand. One of the upcoming changes to the Magic rules as of the Battle for Zendikar pre-release is going to be that when players mulligan hands, they do get to scry. That is not yet in effect for this tournament. Donnan now has the opposite on this hand. He only has one land in his hand. He does have the Chalice of the Void, so if the top card of his deck exactly was to be a land that came into play untapped, that hand would be reasonable because he gets to play a second turn Chalice. But if he misses his second land drop for even one turn, Miyashiro is likely to run him over, so he can't safely keep that hand at all. So he's going down to 5 here. Let's see what he has in his 5-card hand. His 5-card hand has lands and spells, so he's going to keep that to play a shock land tapped. Miyashiro plays a first turn Delver of Secrets. Donnan responds with second turn Chalice for 1. Both players thus far are executing their game plan. Miyashiro gets to flip the Delver of Secrets on its first turn out, Serum Visions. Battle for 3, putting Donnan to 17. Mishiro's going to play fetch, go to 19, get a basic island, play another Jeskai Sage, and pass. It's interesting that Miyashiro is playing the fetch lands even just to get basics. Does a couple things. He gets to thin his deck, and sometimes he wants to shuffle because he has no information from his deck there. Donnan gets to play a Scavenging Ooze as a blocker. Back to Mishiro's turn. Looking at his options, swinging with just the Insectile Aberration. Donnan's going to take 3 and go down to 14. Pass the turn after missing his land drop, which isn't catastrophic for his deck, with his deck being mostly 1 and 2 mana spells. It can definitely operate off of only 2 lands. He would certainly like to hit the 3rd land. Donnan fetched at the end of turn for a tapped shock land, putting him down to 13. Plays another shock land tap and passes the turn, keeping his Scavenging Ooze back to block since Miyashiro didn't want to attack last turn, maybe want to again this turn. And Scavenging Ooze does do his job of discouraging the attack. Insectile Aberration attacks, putting Donnan down to 10. So Donnan's on the back foot at this point. he did draw Pyroclasm, which will answer both of Miyashiro's creatures. So he's going to battle with Scavenging Ooze before he kills it with Pyroclasm. Let's figure out how to tap, play land, Pyroclasm, try and kill both creatures. Miyashiro is playing Remand just so he gets to draw a card, and so Donnan can't do anything else after the Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm is going to get replayed, kill all the creatures. Miyashiro gets to draw a card. And between those, he did make his third land drop. And in spite of only having the third land here, he's actually in a pretty good shape. Because he does have 2 Psionic Blasts in hand, which is enough to do most of Blake's remaining 10 life points. Also has the Vendilion Click, so he gets to play it during the draw step to try and both present 3 points of damage and prevent Donnan from answering it. The Vendilion Click only needs to do 1 damage to get Donnan down to double Psyblast range, so Miyashiro's in a very good spot here. Chose not to take anything because neither of the cards in Blake's hand answer. Except for 3, goes down to 7. So all Just needs to do now is resolve his 2 Psyblasts or 1 Psyblast and hit. Donnan plays a tap land, sees the Psyblast, and scoops. And Justin Miyashiro is the winner of preliminary Pro Tour Qualifier finals in 2 games with Mono Blue Delver, which will allow him to play in the regional preliminary qualifier coming up at the end of October, which is also going to be the modern format. Even though both players agreed going in that Donnan was ahead, Miyashiro was able to come back in a poor matchup with good draws and good play. Can always do that in Magic. It's always anyone's game.